Today we will be continuing with the comprehension. Assalamu alaikum, Afin. If you're doing well. So this is November 2024, paper 1, variant 1. We had attempted question 1 of the comprehension. Now we have to do question 2. And so it starts from line 47 to 48, which is paragraph 10. Right, so there's 3 paragraphs. Just go through these again. Right, I don't think we read them, so just read through these, and when you're done, we can then attempt the questions. Okay, so going to the questions, read this sentence from the text. Unexpectedly, the weather suddenly calmed, and the morning sun lit up the water as we waded in and with the heat on our bare backs. So, what does the writer want to suggest to the reader about the swim at this point? One more question. Right? What can you guess about the swimming or the conditions, right, given the text? Any responses?
It was difficult now.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
It was difficult or hard now.
I couldn't get you still. Could you repeat it, please?
It was difficult or hard now.
It was difficult or hard now. It says unexpectedly the weather suddenly calmed,
Oh,
and
sorry.
the morning sun lit up the water as we waded in with the heat on our bare backs. Now, the question is, what does the writer do? You're saying something about the water not being dark, right? The question is, what does the writer want to tell us about the swim? What does he want to suggest about the swim at this point? Right? So, what you want to focus on what's going to happen with regards to swimming, given that the weather calmed and the sun lit up the water and all of that.
Like weather has gotten cooler.
Yeah, come again.
Like weather had gotten cool or not.
Well, the weather calmed, right? So you can't repeat that as a point. So how would that affect the swim?
It was easy.
Easy or easier,
Easy.
right? So you want to use the comparative, right?
Yeah.
So, and what will become easier? The weather,
No, that's right.
the swim, right? So the swim will become easier. Dua, do you want to try again? Right? Afin has also said the swim became easier. Okay, so there's actually more than one point for this answer. You need only one, but the mark scheme has more than one point. The first one is what you've guessed, right? The swim became or was going to be or it will become easier or safer or more enjoyable or it will go well. So any of those. The other point, and that's why I asked you to try again, because right, an alternate answer for this could be that there was a sense of relief, obviously swimming in turbulent waters as compared to swimming in calm waters. So there's relief that, oh, the water's calm, right? And a third possible point, a third alternate answer is that this is a turning point in the story. Right now, even if you don't get that, because you're like, how does that relate to the swim? I mean, it kind of does, but okay, fine. So even if we, not consider the third point, the swims like like the obvious one is the swim's going to be easier, so that's the obvious one. And you need to mention the swim, right? Not just saying that it is going to be easy, right? Or it is going to be enjoyable, because they've clearly mentioned that your focus should not be on the weather but on the swim. And then the sense of relief which ties in to the weather changing, so that's there. Okay, question 2b, explain why the writer uses the word zoom in, yeah. Explain why the writer uses the word paused rather than stopped in the phrase we paused in the middle of the rush of bodies. So that's line 48, right? Zoom in over here as well. So over here, we paused in the middle of the rush of bodies and pulled down our problems. So you can read the rest for context. And the question is, why did the writer use paused and not stopped? One more question.
because they stop for like a temporary period of time and like a short period of time.
They stopped for a short period of time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or maybe intentionally.
I mean, yeah, intentionally, yes, but right, even if he mentioned stopped instead of paused, it would have been intentional. So, right, you're saying they only stopped for a short period of time. Uh, Afin is saying that they continued swimming after stopping for a while. Mirza is they stopped for a moment and continued swimming after. They stopped momentarily. So all of your answers are correct, right? They stopped briefly or momentarily or for a short period, right? Or they didn't stop, or you could say the reverse, that they didn't stop for long or they didn't stop completely, and right, so they carried on after. So, right, correct answers for all of you. Good on that. Okay, question 2c. What two impressions does the writer want to convey to the reader in this sentence? Splashes of water erupted in all directions, and then we slumped forward, went under, and pulled ourselves through the swirling, green, quiet veil of bubbles. Right? Now, just to reiterate, right, when the question's asking you about impressions, it is about the words, obviously, but it's about how those words, like based on those words, what scene can you create in your mind? And you can obviously take the metaphorical aspect of it as well, right? The figurative language that they've used or the figurative sense. So words are important, obviously, because it is a reading paper. But right, what scene can you make, or what can you imagine, and then explain that in writing? So that's what this is about. So come up with 2 points. You can focus on different parts of this text, whether it will be correct or not. Right? Obviously, that's something we'll discuss, and then let me know your responses. Could you repeat that? Sorry.
The water was violent and the swimmers had to face difficulties.
The water was violent. How was the water violent?
Because like it erupted in all directions.
Hmm. Okay. And the swimmers had to face difficulty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, do I have to describe it or elaborate it a bit as well?
Not too much.
Okay.
Uh, right. Dua has written that the splashes rises when you're using splasher it will be rise up, not rises up. So the splashes rise up like a volcano, and the water was not still but chaotic as the bubbles were rising. So splashes of water erupted. So you're taking the metaphorical, volcano part from the erupted in all directions, and we slumped forward, went under, and pulled ourselves through the swirling green, quiet veil of bubbles. The bubbles part, I think you are, misunderstanding, right? Because the bubble part is when they've gone underwater, and they mention swirling green, quiet veil of bubbles. So the bubbles are the splashes are not because of the bubbles. In fact, it's because of all the swimmers going in, right? As swimmers dived into the shallows around us. So maybe I should have showed you the text for more context. So here's the text for more context. If that will help you formulate a better response. All right, Afin, you're saying that the swirling green, it gives the effect like it's a potion of sorts, right? That could work. It could fit into one of the expected responses, possibly. But that's just one point. What else could you mention? We need 2 points. It's a 2 mark answer. The writer's trying to tell us how beautiful the water was. Okay, that works. They jumped into the water, which created the splashes, water which erupted in all directions, and they dived in deep. So you have to look at it more metaphorically, Bakar, right? A bit more. I mean, it does work somewhat. I think you'll get like 1 mark perhaps, right? No, not both. Let me just read that again. So they jumped into the water. Okay. And water in all directions. Possibly you'll get both marks. Okay. So is everyone done trying? Right? Afin, the splashes were like a volcano exploding. Okay. So the responses possibly are, right, with the splashes of water, right? They're erupting in all directions. So what they're saying is that there was noise or chaos, or it was chaotic above the water, and then water was going everywhere. It was like an explosion, like a volcano. So everyone who's talked about the water going everywhere and the explosion and everything, so you get your mark. Right, then with the splashes, given the context of the text, it's people were falling heavily into the water with force or energy strength. So jumping into the water, Bakir, you might get your mark over there. We slumped forward, went under, and pulled ourselves through the swirling green. So the swirling is, the water is whirling or rippling. So they've taken that. Then it mentions quiet. So, right, there's no noise or it's calm underwater. You need to be specific about that it is calm underwater. And veil of bubbles. So otherworldly is a point. the swirling green veil, quiet veil of bubbles taking that whole thing, and then beautiful. So I believe someone mentioned beautiful, right? Yeah, Dua, how beautiful the water was. So that works. And Afin, when you mentioned it was like a potion, if we consider the point where they mentioned that it was otherworldly, it might work, right? In that sense, it's not a direct suggested point, but it could fit.
So it was difficult for the swimmers would not be counted as a point.
Which one?
The swim was getting difficult.
The swim was difficult will not be counted now because it wasn't like the splashes were because everyone was like jumping into the water, right? So it doesn't have to do anything with the difficulty of the swim. Okay. Then we have, okay, we've done part C. Part C, right? Yeah. We've got part D with the effect. Read the sentence on the text. We're only here once. It called, disappearing recklessly into the squirming mass of swimmers. What effect does the writer suggest about the swimmers by using the phrase squirming mass? Okay, so effect is more focused on the choice of words. What do these words, how do these words describe the people? So there's mass and this. So in this case, there's just two words to focus on. It's a 2 mark question. So, just explain each word and you'll get your marks. So what do you get by reading the word squirming? And what do you get? This is not in like own words question. Just keep that in mind. It's not also, you're not looking for synonyms. You're looking to explain it. Right? So what effect does the writer suggest? Squirming and mass. If it were more than that, then you take a look at it overall and you pick 2 points out of it. Because it's just two words, then right, that's I guess easier to attempt.
There was a large group of people in the swim, and it was like chaotic.
Okay, so chaotic won't work this time. A large group of people, that will work, right? So the mass part is easy to figure out.
And it was causing discomfort.
Uh, no,
Okay.
like maybe you're thinking of like squirming with pain or squirming with discomfort or like that. So maybe that's what you're thinking. But if you take a look at the text, right? Again, right? So I haven't moved to the text. This is over here. And so anywhere over here or earlier, does it tell you about any sort of discomfort? Right? There's no
Recklessly,
huh?
recklessly, like
Recklessly is not being careful. It's not about discomfort.
okay.
All right. So Dua, yours is there were a lot of swimmers and they were continuously moving. Okay. Bakar, there were a lot of people who are moving restlessly a lot. Now, one thing, right, you need to do is not explain your words by repeating alternatives. So moving restlessly and moving a lot sort of like it is different but sort of overlaps in that context. So you only want to use one of those two. Either say they were moving a lot or they were moving restlessly. Afin, do you have a response? Right, so there was a large group of swimmers. So the mass part is right. There was a lot of them. There was a large group, so that works. The I guess the challenge was to explain squirming, right? So you could either go for the physical thing, so moving constantly or moving everywhere, right? Moving restlessly, that works. Moving a lot, right? There's also twisting and wriggling, right? And then the metaphorical like aspect of this, because it's all about language and how it creates effects. So you can refer to like you can go towards the metaphorical side of things. And so for squirming, right, uh, it's used like for example for snakes or eels, which are kind of like snakes, or worms or fish. And so you could say that there were like a lot of people who were moving like snakes, right? Or like worms or something. But just simply saying that they were moving a lot is again, right? As I mentioned, if you're giving a direct response and it works, it's the safer response, so that's okay. And so you get your marks. Finally, we have the 3 mark question. Identify one example of how the writer uses language effectively to convey Matt's feelings in this extract. Right. So for the next half hour, slow waves rocked us as we rose and we sank. A contented pod of swimmers. The seabed disappeared quickly, but the sun still stretched its arrows deep down in the water, catching umbrellas of clear jellyfish rising from the murk, glowing hypnotically under faint shows of shimmering fish. Callum and I timed our strokes evenly as we cut a path through the crisscrossing wakes of other swimmers. Finally, I let my feet trail, basking in the warmth washing over me, until we floated onto the glassy water shielded by the harbor wall around the exit ramp. So pick one example, there's obviously more than one to pick, and then explain it. Right? How does it convey Matt's feelings? Obviously, this type of question is not new to us. I'll just give you a hint. There are 9 different examples you can pick from as given in the mark scheme. Okay. And for the explanation, uh, right, you need to talk about the effect of a particular word. So, like the questions we've been doing, or maybe like right a literary device, a writing technique, or the connotation. So what effect it's giving, like right, what meaning it's giving, what's the impact, what's the impression, perhaps. So all of those. So right, obviously all of you are going to have possibly going to have different answers. So pick those and explain them. 1 mark for the example, 2 marks for the explanation, and I'll give you a few minutes for that, and then we'll check that. Right, Haran, what's your response?
Finally, I let my feet trail.
Finally, let my feet trail.
Okay.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay. How would you explain it?
That he finally let his feet like relax and he started floating in the water, basking, like following the other part as
Hmm. So he let his feet hang, and could you repeat that explanation, please, Haran?
He let his like feet relax and he started floating in the water.
Hmm. Okay. We have some other responses. So Afin has chosen glowing hypnotically under faint shoals of shimmering fish. And the explanation is he was mesmerized by the beauty of the sea life. Dua has chosen the same, and the explanation is the jellyfish were glowing in a way that was enchanting, and that Matt was explaining how beautiful the water was. Okay. Bakar's example is Callum and I timed our strokes evenly as we cut a path through the crisscross wakes of the other swimmers. Explanation: he was determined and focused while they timed out strokes evenly and cut a path through. So, being determined and focused. All right, let's see what you guys get. So, for this, I will show you the mark scheme. Right, doing it simply verbally is not going to work out. So, first of all, the ones that you chose. All right, jellyfish growing hypnotically. So it was the light emitted from jellyfish was mesmerizing or fascinating or strange, right? So the words that you've used: enchanting works, mesmerized works, right? Dua, you've mentioned how beautiful the water was. That could work, or you could just mention, like, it does say beautiful over here, but it is talking about I mean, they just said beautiful, where they are talking about the jellyfish, so you could perhaps have mentioned enchanting and beautiful, so it's focusing on that. As for the shimmering shoals of shimmering fish, so shoals are groups of shining fish or glistening fish. Right, as you can see, Afin, as I told you, you would need one more point of explanation, right? Otherwise, you get two. Bakar, for you, it's Callum and I timed our strokes. So what you've chosen is actually what they've considered as two different points, right? And so that would put you in a tricky situation because they'll only consider one of this. So confident, swimming together, harmony. So what you said is he was determined and focused. Right, so saying it's mystical, Afin would work. It was mystical and mesmerizing, as you can see over here. Everything that they've mentioned, fascinating and strange and surreal and beautiful and all of that. Right, Bakar. So over here, do they mention determined? They do mention confidence. It's not exactly the same as determined. Confidence is here as well. So this would be up to the examiner, right? And I feel that in everything, like, you sort of repeated the timing or strokes evenly, and so that's a repeat of the text itself. And so if you get a mark, again, up to the examiner, if they choose determined as a valid point, you'd get 1 mark for the explanation, so you'd get 2 marks for this one, right? And obviously the explanation needs to match with uh, the example that you've chosen. Right, Haram. Finally, at my feet trails. So he was relaxed and calm. The glow of achievement, pleasure, enjoyment, happiness spreading all over him. So you did mention relaxed. Right, so you get 1 mark for that, and so you as well, I believe, will get 2 out of the 3 marks. So, alright, you guys need to work a bit more, and we still have time, obviously. So you need to work a bit more on the explanation part, right? Go a bit further. So you can see over here that for each of these points, I'm not discussing the rest because you didn't select those, but they're obviously there in the mark scheme. And so you take a look at how they explained it, right? Saying mesmerizing and, you know, beautiful for you might say like, oh, we're saying the same thing twice. But for this particular one, that's what they're looking for, right? So going into further explanation, again, we don't know what exactly they're looking for, right? And so you do, you write all that you can in this case, right? Confidence and harmony and penetrating. So these are different points, right? Mesmerizing and, beautiful. Mesmerizing can be used as a synonym for beautiful, and that's why you would think that it's the same thing being repeated. But in this case, they're treating it as two different points. Over here, they were feeling confident, right? They timed their strokes evenly, so they were working together, they were in harmony. Focused, right? So there's the determined part. So you could, right? I'd say you'd get your point, Bakar, right? Penetrating for cutting a path through. So over here, they've dissected the text and then, given different points, and so that works, right? So sometimes it's just, giving more detail for the same thing. Sometimes it's dissecting the text. It works over here as well, right? The jellyfish being glowing hypnotically and the shoals of fish shimmering. So you could do that, right? And so you could say that the fish were shining, the groups of fish were shining, and the jellyfish were mesmerizing or mystical or enchanting or whatever. So again, right, if you can break the text into two parts, because you need 2 marks for the explanation. If you can break your chosen example into 2 parts and you can explain each part separately, that would guarantee you 2 marks, if that's possible, right? So for example, over here, right, this seems like, how would I break this one into 2 parts, right? So I would take focus on contented and then pod, right? So pod is like a group and it's used for animals. So like it says over here, like a group of sea creatures, and contented, so they're relaxed, right? And so for the pod, there's also feeling of togetherness or group, right? So for this one, try to break your response into 2 parts, right? Like your chosen example into 2 parts at least, and then explain those parts, and you guarantee. So 1 mark for the chosen example, 2 marks for the explanation. So you guarantee your marks. That. Okay, so the next time, that is an approach we could use. Any questions from your side or anything you'd like to ask or suggest or anything? Right, if not,
The synonyms of that match with the answer given in a mark scheme also works.
huh? What about the mark scheme?
The like the synonyms of like the answers also works. No?
Synonyms of the answer. So as long as they fit contextually, it will work. And also, if you give a response that is not over here in the list, that would work as well, right? So these are suggestions, as they mentioned. These are suggestions, right? So Barker used determined, and right, and he does mention focus. So focus is there, so you get 1 mark for determined, right? Again, whether you get your second mark or not is up to the examiner. These are suggestions. Candidate may offer other credit-worthy explanations. So there is the chance that you get your second mark, Barker. And for you, Haram, right? So you could offer alternative explanations, as long as they mentioned, they are credit worthy, as long as they fit the context, as long as they make sense, even if it's not what the examiner has suggested, there is a possibility you'll get your marks. So just because your response is not here, the reason why I'm not saying definitely is because it's up to the examiner, right? And it's not up to the examiner. It's like, oh, I don't feel like it. It's like they will discuss it, and they will consider it. And again, if it fits into the context, if it makes sense, then you will be awarded a mark, even if your response doesn't show up in the mark scheme. Now, this is November 24, paper 11. So I'm going to open up November 24. This is the end of, right, what the summary we'll do next time. So I'm going to open up November 24, paper 21. Right, and right, I'm giving you the composition as homework. So you've got two descriptors and two narratives, obviously. Describe two people you know who have very different lifestyles. They could be members of your family, friends, famous people, or anyone else. Then the other is describe the scene at a popular outdoor location. Popular outdoor location. Obviously, that's very open-ended. In good weather and the same location in bad weather. All right, Afin, I'm guessing that's the one you'll be choosing, since you've shown a apt for descriptive writing. Then you've got narratives. Write a story in which a small notebook is important. Right? Again, the story should focus on the importance of a small notebook, but it could be anything. Like the plot could be anything. And write a story which includes the sentence, she felt a huge sense of joy as she saw her best friend running towards her. Right? So something that would lead her best friend to run towards her and her feeling joy because of it. All right, so something good happened. Right? Uh, right? It could be her winning a competition. It could be her meeting after a very long time, getting stranded on the airport, perhaps, and then being stranded on the airport for a week or so for some reason, and then meeting after a long time. It could be, if you want to make it grim, maybe a kidnapping, and then her being released, and so some suggestions over there. Right, the notebook could be, you're noting your accounts over there, or writing down memos or to-do lists, or important events that you note down in your journal later, or messages, important messages. So you could be like, a clerk at an office and you note down stuff in your notebook. So write different things. A popular outdoor location could be a park, it could be a restaurant, so the usual suspects. Maybe it's a natural location, so maybe it's a hilltop where people go uh, to view the skyline, or star seeing or bird watching, uh, or a camping site, for example, or maybe an event ground where different events take place, like a circus or an exhibition, or a fun gala or something. So those can all be outdoor locations. And it's pretty they've already given you the hints over here that it could be family, friend, or anyone. So different lifestyles. Right, different lifestyles doesn't necessarily mean that it's very different. Like someone who's poor or rich, or someone who's educated and uneducated, for example. You could, for example, take two people, for example, right, who uh, are both educated and they both live in the village, for example. And right, so they're educated, so you're making like this is your setting, right? And they're both educated or uneducated, whatever. Like they could be uneducated, right? The typical, they're living in a village, but one person, right, lives life just like a regular villager, and the other person is more, even though he or she doesn't have an education, they're more particular about things, they're more cautious, they learn and they think, and so their lifestyle is different because of that, as opposed to the other person who just lives life like any other person in the village. So it could be like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a contrast in terms of someone living in the city and someone living in the village. They could be of the same social status, the same education level, the same locality, but living different lifestyles. Okay, so some suggestions as terms of those. Uh, how do we write descriptive writing on people? Like, and we can't really add sensory details. Uh, Right, that's a good question. So it's about, so you're going to describe, so it's not going to be a narrative, but it will be about the lifestyle. So the things they do or the things around them or the choices they make, right? So maybe you could, talk about, as I was just explaining this, uh, you could add some sensory details, right? Or you could talk about how they react to things, or how they're, for example, an easy way of going about this is, uh, take either their daily routine or put them, and how they, like, it's lifestyle. So not exactly, I was going to say how they react differently to the same situation, but that's not lifestyle. So lifestyle would be, the things they have, or the things, like the way they behave, and their routines and their mindset. So it is a different take, right? So if you want to challenge yourself, you could try that. It would be new for me as well, because I don't normally get these kind of responses, right? Students generally tend to avoid descriptive writing. Or if you want to be more in your comfort zone, right, the outdoor location thing is there, right? There's nothing wrong with that, since you are preparing for your exam. If you want to broaden your, skill set, then obviously you can. Oh, I'm not sharing that. I'm just okay. I'm not sharing it with you guys. It's being shared in the recording. So my bad. Let me just put that on screen for you guys very quickly, even though I've read it all out. So, uh, why is it not showing? Am I sharing the wrong one? I'm sharing the wrong one. There you go. Right. So those are the ones, right? My bad. I had switched to it in the recording, not for you guys. Perhaps I forgot to switch it in the recording as well. Okay. So anyway, there it is. And yeah, so I'll put this on Google Classroom, and you can attend obviously anyone. And please don't make presentations and other stuff. Just type below the screenshot. Keep it simple. Type below the screenshot right there. Okay, you don't need to make attachments. You don't need to make, I mean, you know, upload other documents or make a presentation out of it or anything else. Right? Just type below the screenshot I'm going to put in that very document. All right. So with that, right, that's the end of class, and I'll see you guys next time, and we will, right, discuss the summary, and then, right, we'll move on with that. Okay. All right. Next time then, inshallah.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.